Good evening, YouTubers, tuber-woobers. So I'm showing you this can of Survival Sea Vault. You can read it too. Patriot Supplies, where I got it from. Outstanding company for things. And I was watching a video from Prepper Nurse 1 last night, talking about what if the shit hits the fan scenario. Are you prepared? You know, the reality is that most people probably are not prepared, and that most people probably don't have a clue. And the reason for that is because there's a lot involved with this. In order to have a bunker or a shack in the woods, you know, there's a lot involved to it. You just can't stock it full of MREs and some batteries and an inverter, or, you know, a couple of solar panels. You know, there's a lot involved. You know, essentially, when you're talking about survival, you have to think about food, because you have to eat food to survive. Water, clean water. Not just water, but clean water. Water that you can drink and you won't get sick from. Water that you need to be able to bathe and wash your clothes and do your dishes and water your garden, especially watering your garden. You certainly can't be getting stream water that's coming from a farm up the road where it's all contaminated with crap. You can't be watering your garden with that. So you need to be able to have a good source of water. You need to have shelter. Shelter, you know, there are places in this country, in this world, that you can live and it's warm year-round, and really you're protecting yourself now from the sun and not from the cold. But in the United States, even down towards Florida, they get cold. So, you know, you have to protect yourself from the weather. You have to protect yourself from the rain, the snow, the ice, you know, the heat. You have to protect yourself from wild animals, from bugs. You know, it's not just throwing a tent up in the woods thinking you can survive by hunting squirrels. In fact, you can't even live off of, you know, essentially just woods animals, because they don't have a high enough fat content. You know, it would take a great deal of effort to just live off of varmints. So, I mean, there's a lot involved in living off the grid. People think, oh, I'll just get a cabin in the woods and live off the grid. Well, where are you going to get the power? If you're away from the grid, if you're away from, you know, the electric company, you've got to generate power by either wind, by water, like a river or a stream going by the house, or by the sun. If you're up here in the Northeast, you know, where the sun drops down, you know, right now the ideal position for your solar panels are practically a 50-degree angle. That's pretty darn steep. You know, and if they're going behind trees, you're doomed. Not just doomed, you're doomed in getting sufficient enough solar to charge up your batteries, unless you have a boatload of, or you can get them up above that tree line. Like up on a tall house. Now, a cabin in the woods isn't a tall house. Wind. You got to get your wind turbine up about 40 feet. Unless you live someplace where there's a clear view of the horizon and you've got really good wind when you're right off the top of your roof. But, you know, a lot of people, you know, cabin in the woods doesn't qualify. You got to get that turbine up above those trees, 45, 50 feet. You've got to have a battery bank. You've got to have a generator. You may get by without a generator, but chances are you're going to need a generator. Because there are going to be days when it's dark for a week and there's no wind. Because that's what the beauty of living in New England is all about. That's what we love about it. And that you're probably going to be surrounded by 3 feet of snow. So, you have to be prepared for that. You can go off to work every day, fill up your gas can, come home, run the generator. You can do that. There's no problem with that. Satellite dish maybe, internet, Wi-Fi. You can always go to the city and connect and then come back home. If those are the kind of things that are important to you. So, you have to think about food. MREs are good to have in a pinch. But eventually you're going to run out of those. Year supply, half a year supply, something to get through. Stockpile your own foods. You got to stockpile your own foods. You got to stockpile grains. You got to stockpile vegetables. You've got to stockpile stuff. And stuff that's relatively healthy. You can't fill up the closet with Fruit Loops. You can, but you got to find a way of getting milk if you got to eat Fruit Loops. Because I don't think I've never been able to make them taste good with water. Maybe there's just somebody out there that has a secret making it with water. Yeah, you can buy dehydrated milk and mix up milk if that's what you want to do. Those are options. So you have to figure out, what are you going to do? If you live in an apartment building someplace, what are you going to do when things get bad? You're going to have people busting in your door looking for whatever you have. Or you're going to have to go down and stand in line when the National Guard comes. You've seen all the scenarios, you've seen all the movies, you've seen the TV shows. We're just waiting for Family Guy to come out with a shit hit the fan scenario. Because I'm surprised they haven't yet. The reality is that there's always a possibility, not even saying that there's going to be some kind of economic collapse or some kind of natural disaster. It's actually the natural disaster. A power failure. A tornado. Like a few years ago, the tornado went down into Springfield, Mass. And hurt a lot of people. Destroyed a lot of homes. Earthquakes. Just snowstorms. Snowstorms that can have you tied up in your house for a week. All that's possible. It's possible more and more now than it used to be. It seems like every year there's some kind of disaster somewhere. And how are you going to do it? But the problem here is that you just can't stockpile stuff into a closet and leave it there. You've got to learn more to it. Like this, for example, right here. This is a survival seed vault. So inside this can, which is this is a metal can, and it's got a nice tight lid on it. Inside there are envelopes of seeds. Now they're plastic or Mylar envelopes, and they've got a Ziploc on them, so you can use a few and then and grow food. But you're not going to be able to grow food in the winter time. Unless you have a greenhouse or unless you're growing them inside your house. You're not going to be able to grow them outside in the climate. So you really need is like a greenhouse. You may need a greenhouse anyway. Are there any tomatoes in this picture? Yes. Tomatoes have a very short season up here in New England. 3 months, tops. If you have them in a greenhouse, you can extend that season more. So the bottom line here is, you could prepare for when the shit hits the fan. But the reality is what you want to plan for is a change in your lifestyle. A way to grow vegetables year round, or at least most of the year. A way to live more conservatively. Get your power usage down. So maybe you can supply part of your house with solar or wind. Have it going into a battery bank. And when the grid goes down, then at least you're running part of your house and it's not necessarily all dependent on a generator. A lot of ways it can save the energy in your house. Like I have one of those hybrid water heaters. It's a big thing. It was expensive. It was $1,000. And unfortunately it wasn't the only thing I spent $1,000 on in this place. But, you know, looking at water heaters, you're going to spend $600 on a decent water heater anyway. So going an extra $400 for something that's efficient. The water heater, electric water heater, uses about 60% of your water. 60% of your electric bill. That's a big piece. So if you're off the grid and you're using 60% of your power that you're generating to run your hot water, that's a lot. It's a lot. You know, if you're running an electric stove, yeah. Electric dryer, yeah. You know, all these things, they consume lots of power. You know, people look at the Harbor Freight. So many YouTubes out there say, "Oh boy, I just got my Harbor Freight, and I only paid $100 for it. I got a coupon." But you're only getting 45 watts of solar, and they're crappy panels and also. So, you know, you take the money you just spent on that and you start putting it towards some good panels. Before you know it, you've got a good panel system. But you've got to look at it from a long term. It's not cheap to live this way. I could live my life on macaroni and cheese and SpaghettiOs, Spam, you know, all those things that you can go buy in the store cheap, although Spam's not really all that cheap, but macaroni and cheese is. You know, peanut butter and jelly, crappy bread, you know, all that stuff is cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap. You can live off of that stuff. It's not healthy for you. You're going to develop things that you don't want, not to mention buying meat that's GMO, and, you know, vegetables that are GMO, and the treatment of those animals are horrific. But you can go that route, you know, and people do it. People do it. That's the cheap way out. It's the same thing with, but if you're gonna go and say, gee, I like to live off the grid and have a better way for my family, that's what it's about. A better way for you and your family. Even if you're living by yourself, like I'm living by myself here, you know, what can you do? Everything in the house are LED bulbs. Everything. Except for maybe one, which is the outside light, bug light. So I really should upgrade that. But it's actually a fairly efficient light, because it's very dim normally and brightens up when someone walks in front of it. So, you know, there are ways you can do to reduce your footprint and your survival. You know, create a garden. Even do it with friends, neighbors. Create, you know, a garden. Have someone do chickens and you do something else. Or you do chickens and they do something else. You know, raise a pig and then slaughter it in the winter for, you know. There's things you can do to sustain yourself all the time. Instead of waiting for things to happen, for you to get the phone call that the world's coming to an end, to head for your bunker. You do it all the time. Hey, you have a surplus of vegetables? Bring them to the farmer's market. Or donate them to a neighbor. Or set up a little farm stand out in front of your house and say, here, I have extra. Make a donation, goes towards my seed for next year. Oh, and seed. This is a seed bowl. So this is, I give you a whole list of things. Supposed to be an acre of stuff. Now, once a year, you don't use up these seeds, you're done. But if you start harvesting the seeds from your vegetables before you cook them, to use them next year, there you go. You're just perpetuated this one can over and over again each year. Now these seeds are heirloom and they're non-GMOs. And they're designed to grow plants, and they're designed for their babies to grow more plants. So you think about how you want to do it. Well, once you do it, then what? So once you're prepared, then what? Then what? Then what? Then what? There ought to be a song. And then what? It probably is a song. Anyway, I just wanted to share. I don't know. Maybe I ought to just delete this. Maybe I've been talking too long. How long have I been talking for? Way too long. 15 minutes. It's going to take me 2 days to upload this video. Yeah, I got DSL, so it's going to take me 2 days to upload a 45-minute video. Actually, it's 15 minutes. Wow. Yeah. Change your life. Change your lifestyle. Have less of a carbon footprint. You know. Drive the gas guzzler caddy because you love it. But, you know, still, you're going to have to, if you want to survive, you've got to make steps for your family and for you. When things happen, there's less and less aid. It takes longer and longer each time. You know, these ships that travel all over the world, these military ships, they're loaded with survival food. That's how they can respond to disasters all over the world so quickly. But here, how quick do you think they're going to deliver to your town when things are bad? Water. Water is the big deal. Hey, where are you going to poop? You've got sewer. If you're running into a public sewer and the power failure goes down, or there's a flood and that system goes down, where are you going to poop? Where? Do you know? Yeah, I'm going to dig a hole out in the backyard and poop in there. Well, you know, that only works for a short period of time. You know, composting toilet. Better yet, a urine diverter composted toilet. You look it up and see why you'd want to go with that route versus digging a hole. Digging a hole contaminates soil. That's why we've kind of gone away from those types of outhouses. Now the outhouses are composting toilets. It's because the contamination of the water table. You know, the water table that's going to be taking care of your crops and your animals and attention all hands. So I'm going to end it here, 17 minutes. Have a wonderful, wonderful